And officially, good evening, everybody. This is a really interesting evening because we've invited Jampa Shenaman, whom I've watched videos of on YouTube, but didn't know before, recommended by our former director team, Jeff and Nina, who are in the US on a long retreat. And I've sent you a video into you with Jampa Shenaman about his life. And it's a really wonderful story and also very long. So what I could do tell is that Jampa was ordained for many years, one of the first Westerners, disrobed, and also along the way has received permission to do a lot of tantric teachings, including those of highest Tantra. And that's why I invited him to come and teach us about Tantra, because this is really interesting and needed. And Jampa has accepted questions, maybe at the end. We'll start with a few prayers and a mandala. And please observe the chat, because Jampa and I will also share some notes in the chat. And we will go to the prayers. Coming right up. Would you, Jampa, would you share, read?
Okay, personally, just to start, I like to do prayers in the language that we understand. So I don't encourage saying it in Tibetan, although it might sound sacrilegious, but the thing is, I think it's important that we know what we're saying. Of course, if you study Tibetan, that's great. And the first thing, of course, though, is motivation. So, why are you here tonight? That would be the first big question, I mean, check up. What I like to, if, for example, you're familiar with the 4 key points of karma. Karma is definite, karma increases. If you don't do it, don't expect the result. And if you don't do anything, then it will ripen. And so with the third one, we often motivate, but it's really important to actually, generate some feelings. And so although we might generate some quite good universal feelings, our sincerity or let's say more really heartfelt feelings would come if we bring to mind someone that we love. So just what I like to think of is it bring to mind someone that you actually really do love, whether, and even if you don't have any people in your life, maybe it's your pet dog or cat. I mean, because often they have unconditional love for us. So you bring them to mind. And then when you have the feeling of love in your heart, then you say, I'm attending the class tonight for them too, to be able to offer a more enlightened relationship to them. So with that thought, then we'll do prayers. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of generosity and memory of teachings and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transcendental beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and the assembly by the merits of generosity and so forth. May I become a Buddha to benefit transcendental beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened with the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly by the merits of generosity and so forth. Sorry. There. Sorry, just my phone. I turned it into what? Don't disturb me, and it still disturbs me. Very demanding. Okay, so anyway, I take refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha from now until enlightenment. I work for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings be happy. Okay, the mandala.
Yeah, the mandala is coming right up.
Okay.
Coming right up. And I would like to.
If you'd like to say it, that's fine.
Coming right up. No, it's always down the page, but it's coming. Coming right up. Here we are. And I would like to offer it in Tibetan, because we offer it to the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and for His Holiness and all our wonderful teachers. So chant along if you wish. Sashi Perki Yuksheng Meto Tramri Rablingi Nihide Gyan Pari Sangye Shindu Mete Uwagi, Dokunanda Shingla, Jepaksho, Jetsun Lama, Dampak Yenam, Ichurki Kala, Yense Chuchin Tri, Jita Sampe Duche Sin Mala, Sakye Chuki Chapa, Vaptu So, Idam Guru Ratnamadalakam Yatsayami. Thank you, and I will hand over the words to Jampa.
Okay, so hello everybody, and nice to meet you all. Okay, I have to do something. Okay, sorry, I just want to change something, so it's there. Okay, so technology. At the time of the Buddha, there was Ananda, and he had a photographic memory, so everything he said was just boom, it was there, and to be shared at a later time. For us, we have all of the technology, and of course, it fails us. Anyway, okay, so the subject matter tonight is the Mahamudra, but the question, the point that's really important is that what's the idea or philosophy you have behind that? Because Mahamudra is sort of this, you go into this state of consciousness where you are in harmony with reality. Okay.
Sorry, tonight would be about DEITY yoga, and April would be Mahamudra.
Oh, okay. Well, that's. Oh, I thought we were. You changed it and changed it
Oh,
again.
yeah. Maybe it might be my fault. Actually, it was two weeks of DEITY yoga, and then in April will be Mahamudra. Sorry, it's my mistake.
That's okay. I mean, I can do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start all over. Okay. For now, there's different levels of practice in Tantra. So first off, I guess the general practice of Tantra, we look at it's broken into 4 levels. There's the Kriya, Karya, Yoga, and then Anuttara Yoga. And so in DEITY yoga practices, the main point is it's to help personify qualities of enlightenment that we would like to have a greater association with. So in Tantra, the first off, of course, I mean, you have to have the graduated path. And having done that, then you enter into the tantric vehicle, you receive an initiation, or if it's the lower tantras, you have what's called a permission. If you have the higher tantras, it's called a full-on initiation. But the more important thing, though, is to really understand the graduated path, because that is personified by a deity. And so whether it's just, Tara Avalokiteshvara, or it's all the way up to Heruka or Yamantaka or Guhya Samaja, all of these deities, though, personify the particular, let's say, components or aspects of the graduated path. So therefore, if you don't have much understanding of the graduated path, which really is a psychological technique to work with yourself, I mean, yes, we think certain things and such, but you really want to come to sort of a concluding understanding or emotion or feeling of the various things in the graduated path. And so therefore, if you don't understand that, and then you start generating deities or, imagining deities, there's not much, there's not much substance. It'd be equivalent to sort of having a plate of food, but it has no flavor. And so what you want with your tantric practice is that there's lots of flavor there, lots of, let's say important things. And our mind responds to imagery really a lot. I mean, let's say if you take just mundane things, for example, let's say you drive a certain type of car, and again, I mean, this is very mundane, but the thing is, if you're driving an old Volkswagen or an old, I don't know, an old Peugeot or something like that, then people automatically sort of, or you put a certain label on that person. If they're driving the highest end BMW or Mercedes Benz, you say, either one, they're rich, or they're very much in debt. But anyway, the point being is that we do respond to imagery. And so therefore, Tantra is really giving us the opportunity to have images that are meaningful for us. And if you took even just the general presentation of Buddhism, I mean, if you look at the Lama Chopa or Guru Puja, one of the first verses is that, may I cross the ocean of samsara, and may I not be bitten by the denizens of samsara, the denizens of the ocean of samsara, and such like that, which should be, our misunderstanding, our attachments, or our aversions, and such. So we are given imagery. In fact, if you look at any religion, I mean, whether it's Christianity, Buddhism, or Hinduism, or whatever, they all have massive amounts of imagery. So Tantra is our version of imagery. And then depending on what level of Tantra you're into, it gives a certain level of impact on you. But the bottom line is, though, your understanding of the graduated path. So just because we're talking about deity yoga, I want to talk about the graduated path, because if you get that, then you're going to understand that. But I want to talk about it in a certain way that maybe you've not heard before, because we have the very traditional one. I mean, and I'm not talking, I want to start with first precious human rebirth. And there's, we can go through, there's the eight freedoms and the 10 endowments, and then, it's by examples and such. There's all these different things. But what you want to do is you want to end up at an emotion which is really positive. And in Tantra, remember, you are a bodhisattva, and that means you've got a definite agenda. And then you have Tantra to practice, so you become a tantric bodhisattva. So that's the context. So the graduated path, is an evolution. Go through the initial scope, medium scope, and great scope. But the bottom line is that you already have the intentionality when you're in Tantra. Okay, so first off, just some comments, because inevitably, when I was in India, and I met the Lamas in 1970, in 1971, then I became a monk. So we're talking way back when, and the vocabulary was really, it was basically created by some Jesuit monks. They created the Chandra Das dictionary, and a lot of that was basically Christian terminology. So, for example, if you talk about, they use the renunciation, it's not the right word, because what have you done? Okay, I'm going to renounce cigarettes and alcohol. So I'm looking backwards. So look, I renounce that, and I renounce that. That's behind me. Whereas the Tibetan word is nejum, or nejum, which is to go forward. Or Alex Berzin gives a nice one. It says, spiritual determination. And what it is it's looking forward. So you don't renounce anything. You're going forward, and so maybe some things are left behind. But psychologically, you have to think about it like, oh, I renounced cigarettes. Oh, I renounced alcohol. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Alex Berzin was the one I referred to for a sec there. So the point being is that in regards to our spiritual practice, it's really important to have the right vocabulary, because you're going to have the right psychological effect on yourself. So precious human rebirth, there's all of the details that you go through. And, one of the things you could think of is, you wake up in the morning and, have I taken advantage of my precious human rebirth, which is almost like a guilt trip. Like, have I done something good enough? Have I been virtuous enough today, and such, which for some people would be very beneficial. But the point is that the point is, in regards to the practice, if we're going to talk about Tantra, then you have to sort of assume that you've arrived at a spiritual practice. You have some intentionality. So the example I like to do is that you've won the lottery ticket of a precious human rebirth. And why? Tara Rinpoche gave a really good example once when he came to Duncan, where I used to live and teach in Canada. And he said, you guys have lots of imaginations, and you can use those. Use your imagination in a way that sort of stimulates you. So, for example, then, and he said, think of a lottery ticket. Like, if you won the lottery ticket today, I mean, you haven't got the money yet, but you'd be just jumping up and down, and you'd be so exhilarated, and you'd be saying, yes, and why? Potentiality. You have all this, you can pay off your debts, you can give lots of money to your family members, you can maybe make a huge donation to the Dharma Center, things like that. That'd be really great. So it's like potentiality. And so, if you then think of my precious human rebirth, and again, remember, we're bodhisattvas, we're doing something with ourselves. then you want to be enthused. Like, yes, I'm excited. So it's not like, after having winning the lottery ticket, the next morning or in the mornings in the future, you wake up and say, oh, and I have to spend money. Oh, it's so hard. I have to spend money, come on, you wake up and be excited. I mean, granted, you could just be mundane and wanting to sort of have personal things, but with the precious human rebirth, it's like, wow, I have opportunity and I got it. I won the ticket. And, really we did. I mean, even if we have a slightly complicated situation in our life, still we have so much opportunity in our culture. We're not limited. I mean, compared to, for example, I mean, if you went back to the medieval time where we'd all be serfs, underneath some lord, I mean, that would be a complicated rebirth. I mean, we have unbelievable freedom. We really did win the lottery ticket. And at this time frame, I mean, with all the medicines and such like that, I mean, wow, we really lucked out. I do think about it in terms of, for example, it's so nice to meditate now, but if you go back, even 100 years or more, we all would have had intestinal problems. We all would have had some sort of animal living inside of our intestines, with worms and things like that, because they didn't have medicines for it. I mean, you go back to the medieval time. I mean, all of the sanitary, places they dig up, they're just full of amoebas and all sorts of horrible stuff. And we have medicine to, you think you might have it, you can take a medicine. Or you have a small headache, I mean, you can take medicine. You have a toothache, you can take some medicine. You can go to the dentist and they can use Novocaine and they'll numb the pain. We won an incredible rebirth with very, very few sufferings. So really, we lucked out massively, so get excited about your life. But anyway, coming back to the main point is, okay, we won the lottery ticket of Precious Rebirth. Wow, I'm excited with my life. I wake up in the morning and I can do something. So that would be, you might say, a way to be inspired in the terms of being a bodhisattva. Then spiritual determination, we move then to that things are impermanent. And again, I like to sort of come up with sort of a key idea with that would be, I'm only going to be left with what I've been doing with these things. So I'm only going to be left with how I've been relating to my possessions. Have I been generous and shared? I mean, I don't have to be rich to be generous, but just have I been sharing? So my possessions, I have a sense of abundance in my life. Or with my relationships, it's not what I'm getting from people, it's what I'm offering. And at the end of my life, how do I want to feel? Because I'm only going to get what I've offered to those people. If I've offered love and wisdom and patience and things like that, then, yeah, we're going to be miserable. We're dying. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sorry. There's no way that you can say, oh, I'm quite comfortable to die today. No, I'm sorry. It's no fun. But when we think about our life, we're going to say, okay, I feel good about who I was with the people I had in my life. In fact, actually, I did a chaplaincy course a long time ago in Canada. But in chaplaincy, when people die, and this is from statistics of lots of people, nobody talks about God or Buddha or Jesus Christ. They talk about family. Maybe on occasion they shift over to, God and Jesus Christ or whatever, or Buddha. But the bottom line is we all talk about family. That's statistical. So therefore, what have I offered to my family? So again, I mean, when you think about, things are impermanent. At the end of my life, I'm only going to be left with what I've done, what I've offered with my possessions, what I offered to my friends and things like that. And that can make me feel okay about who I am. And then finally, I mean, your body's going to be the thing that kills you. I mean, it's the thing that sort of, the battery goes dead. So the thing is like, yeah, I mean, take care of it. Eat well and clean yourself up and look attractive because it makes you more influential. But the bottom line is it will be the thing that kills you. So don't exaggerate it. And so, I mean, we wake it up in the morning and we bathe it and then we put creams on it and perfumes on it and such like that. And then we feed it the best of yogurt and fruit, and then lunch we have, something really nice and tasty or whatever like that. And again, and in the evening time, we go for a massage, for our body because we know we're tired, but again, the bottom line, it kills us, So again, eat well and dress well and be polite and things like that, but do it for as an offering to other people, that that you're attractive. And so therefore, when someone says, gee, you're such a nice person, you say, yeah, I meditate. Instead of saying I'm a Buddhist, that's a bit too much, but to say I meditate, then they say, oh, really? Oh, meditation, that sounds interesting. He says, yeah. Then you can lead them slowly into being, into the Buddhist path if you want to. Bottom line, though, is just making them more virtuous is the main thing. Anyway, so there's the second point on the graduated path, that things are impermanent. So I'm only left with what I've done with my possessions, what I've offered to my friends, and what I've done or how I've used my body. So in the end, you can say, hey, body, you did a good job, and yes, I feel good about who I was with my friendships. Anyway, this graduated, when you look at a deity that is so attractive, for example, Tara, Avalokiteshvara, or Manjushri, their beauty is because of the wealth of their virtue. And then, so how did they do that? Well, they were generous. And they were friendly, warm, and compassionate, and wise, and they did good things with themselves. So that's how they're so attractive to us. Okay, and then the refuge. Refuge is, of course, Buddhas are the inspiration. If Buddha could fix us, he would have done it, or she would have done it. So the point is that Buddhas are inspiration. The real protection is the Dharma, and then our spiritual friends help us on the path. Anyway, I'm not going to go through all the details, but the point is that having a good psychological context for your practice, that's really quite important, that you are inspired about your life. Okay, so, and then we personify that as a deity, and we try to emulate that deity, or in higher tantras, you actually identify with the deity. But the bottom line is that it is a personification of the graduated path. So the Buddhas are radiant. They have a rainbow aura around their body. If you met somebody in Zurich or something like that, and they were just radiant, you'd say, oh, wow, well, you're such an attractive person. Why? And then if it was a Buddha, they would say, well, I practice virtue and such. So the main point anyway is Tantra is a personification. And so we need to actually start generating some of the very, attractive feelings of the graduated path. So I'm inspired by the Buddhas. I'm inspired by Lama Zopa and the Dalai Lama. That's the inspiration. And then the Dharma is the real thing. Then, of course, next in the graduated path is karma. So be careful how we create ourselves. And then, we move into how to deal with our delusions. Again, with words, it's interesting in the Tibetan language, they have the word ignorance, but actually it's called mukpa, but the real word is rikpa and marikpa. Okay, so what's interesting is, as in the Dharma, we would say I understand or I don't understand would be the correct way. So what is it? Well, I understand the nature of reality. Okay, so therefore I'm careful with how I accumulate my karma. I do not understand the nature of samsara. So therefore I'll rely on my anger, my ignorance, there I said the word ignorance. But the bottom line is, again, what's the effect is that I understand or I don't understand. That's the Tibetan words. Rikpa, I understand. Ma rikpa, I don't understand. So when we always say my ignorance, where's the positive word within that? There's nothing. So again, looking at psychologically, I'm ignorant. Okay, end of story, whereas I don't understand has the possibility of I can understand. See what I mean? It's Buddhism, you really have to think about it a lot. Lama Yeshe is always saying, check up, think about things, analyze things. And so I don't know, I think nowadays that, with the people that have been around a long time, like I've been 52 years being a Buddhist since I became a monk and such, and then there's lots of other people that are out there. Dr. Nick and there's tons of us that have been around for, late 40, if not 50 years. And I think by now we started to figure out that like the words that maybe are more appropriate especially if you've studied Tibetan, then you really start to go, whoa, this is not like the words that we used to use sometimes psychologically do not have the right effect on us. Anyway, so there we have that I don't understand, and because I don't understand, I'll rely on my anger and I'll rely on my attachment. Okay, and if I start to understand and I understand anger doesn't solve my problems, it's not the best way to deal with situations. And attachment, well, everything isn't permanent, it will always change. I understand that. Okay, so again, in regards to deity practices, if you did become a deity, then it should be full of the quality of what you've understood in the graduated path. Okay, so anyway, so we then have the bodhicitta, work for the benefit of all sentient beings, and then finally the 6 perfections, and then we arrive in Tantra. So that would be the evolution of the graduated path towards enlightenment. So when you take that and then put it into a deity, deities are very, well, let's say the lower class tantric deities are very attractive because they embody quality. Okay, then again, it's like, what's it reflect back to you? Again, imagery. Okay, and this is, we're just talking basics. Later on, I'll get into sort of maybe Anuttara yoga, which should be more fun. But for right now, let's talk about this sort of Tara, Avalokiteshvara, like that. So they're all on a lotus. Okay, and so if you don't have much understanding of the lotus and then of a spiritual determination, then it does not sort of, it's not got much flavor. But okay, how does the lotus grow? Well, it has its roots in mud, and then the stem, or then its stem comes up, and then finally above the quagmire, it blossoms into a flower. Okay, well, that means this is it as a bodhisattva path, because we're talking about the Buddhists sit on a lotus and a sun and a moon, or a lotus and moon cushion, and then they sit on that because they have had spiritual determination, they have love and compassion and wisdom. Okay, so if you wanted to just cop out, get away from samsara, you don't need to have spiritual determination. Well, you have spiritual determination, but you don't need to work on cyclic existence. But the roots of a lotus needs nourishment. That's samsara. That's the nourishment that helps it grow. That's the mud that helps it grow. So when you look at a Buddha who became fully enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, they have dealt with the samsara, but they didn't reject it. They worked with their delusions. And, nowadays, the big word's empathy. Again, I want you to think about stuff. Okay, that's what my first talk about today is. Okay, so we talk about the Buddhists have spontaneous love and compassion for sentient beings. Okay, now, and then of course that's inconceivable, it's said. But if we now recognize that empathy is a huge thing. And so if you, for example, you were able to touch some suffering, let's say maybe you're an angry person, or you're very possessive, or you're competitive or jealous. Okay, so you have that sort of delusion. So it's like, that's a delusion, I need to get rid of it. Okay, that's sort of Hinayana view. Okay, whereas Mahayana view is, oh, okay, look, I'm angry. What's my anger doing? Well, it makes me unhappy, makes other people unhappy, not very skillful to solve the problems, gives me indigestion, I don't sleep at night. These are all the standard things that the Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva Guide to the Way of Life. But the thing is, in the Bodhisattva path, you'd say, okay, I need to understand that anger isn't skillful, but you don't reject anger. You work with it to make it to be more positive. You could say you bring your anger into enlightenment. So you could say, when you have an angry feeling, if you've got enough personal sort of space, a bit of peace, you say, oh, anger, I need to help you. I need to help you become more enlightened. If you do that with your own anger, then when somebody else in front of you is angry, you spontaneously say, oh, I need to help this person. I understand this is painful. It's not being helpful. How can I help the person? So it's a little bit of a difference. Like you could say, anger is not good. Don't do it. You're not going to solve your problems. Okay, that would be some information that might be useful. But if you were to turn around and as a person say, whoa, I've been angry before too. It really hurts, doesn't it? If you get really like that person's such a horrible person, or that situation or that government or that president or whatever, they really bother me. I get me angry, like that, but that's not the best technique. I tried that. So if you've appreciated the pain of your own anger, and then you tried to bring your own anger, or you maybe did bring your own anger to a more enlightened position, that means is that when someone's angry in front of you, you're going to appreciate them in an empathetic way, not judgmental, but an empathetic way. That's very powerful, So when I think about the Buddhas being spontaneous, and they had thousands and thousands of rebirths cultivating themselves, that in each of those ones, they were bodhisattva. They had empathy. They appreciated the pain of a delusion, but then they worked on it to bring that delusion into enlightenment. You could say release it of its pain, however you want to phrase it, doesn't really matter. But you could say they had compassion to their delusion to say, you're not skillful, and so may I help you become more enlightened. And when they did that to themselves, they would spontaneously, naturally have that ability with other people. So it's very interesting, the whole sort of the thoughts about how is a Buddha spontaneous, because it said that when they are enlightened, they fully cognize all of their previous rebirths. So you and I, whoever we are, whether we're married, divorced, we're old, we're young, we have cancer, we're healthy, whatever, the Buddhas have had all of those experiences. So they basically can immediately empathize with you. Their very subtle consciousness can touch you, and they can feel all the nuances of your own consciousness. And with that omniscient mind, they just have nothing but empathy and compassion because they've been there, they've done it. It's so interesting. I mean, it's really, really interesting to think about these things in terms of sort of this very positive context. Okay, so actually for me, when I look at the Buddha statue now, I just feel I have this whole different sort of feeling, because I look at them like millions of rebirths, and in one of those rebirths you were like Jampa. You did what Jampa did, and you made the mistakes that Jampa did, because you've had millions of rebirths, you've had billions of rebirths possibly, and so therefore, wow, I love you because you understand me perfectly. And you don't understand me out of a judgmental thing. You understand me out of love and empathy. Like, wow, the Buddha, the Buddha doesn't do it, but the Buddha would say, wow, I know what you're going through. I mean, there was actually there's the FPMT thing, I forget what it's called, the facilitators for the 16 steps of enlightenment. And now there's a whole bunch of programs there on empathy. Really, really good ones. And I can't quote the source of it. Universal education is part of that. Anyway, but so with these presentations, we go like, wow. Or for example, some of you have been meditating for 10, 20, 30 years, but now I have all this information about mindfulness. And so hopefully we have some of the benefit of that. But the point is that like, wow, it's not like just faith that we do meditation. That's actually what really will affect us. Your memory will improve, your focus will improve, your body's immune system will improve. All of these different things just from mindfulness. No, nothing with motivation, just sitting down and trying to be present to your breathing. Then you have wonderful Buddhism that comes in and gives you motivation and gives you dedication and gives you so many more techniques, and it gives you the nature of your mind. Wow, we're so lucky. We have all of these things. Okay, so anyway, we're talking about the quagmire. What I was talking about is the mud that the lotus grows in. That nourishes the lotus. So that means is that you nourish yourself for how you deal effectively with your delusions, because that will create the stem that will become the lotus flower that you can sit on when you become enlightened. That's the progression that's there. So if you think of your delusions as a big problem, then yeah, you've got a problem. You've got double problems. You've got an attitude that's not very bodhisattva, and then you have a problem. Okay. Whereas if you say, okay, this is the manure of my life. This is that needs to be composted, needs to be brought into enlightenment. It's a perspective or an attitude that looks at, well, you could say, looks at the delusions with a empathetic compassion, saying, whoa, Angry Jampa, you need to be better. Jampa who lies a little bit needs to be better. You know, I need to bring that guy into enlightenment. You know, so you do that to yourself. I mean, more positive context. Or as Trungpa Rinpoche said, you know, if there's a pile of excrement in the floor, you know, you might think, oh, how filthy and how dirty. But if you're a farmer, it'd be, whoa, fertilizer. You know, it all depends on perspective. So when we practice Buddhism, especially in the Bodhisattva path, that we would like to become enlightened, we then have to have this attitude of saying, well, I work for the benefit of others. I'll work to bring myself and to others into enlightenment. I will bring my anger into enlightenment. I'll bring my attachment into enlightenment. I'll bring my jealousy, my possessiveness into enlightenment. Okay, so that's the quagmire that then produces the stem that then finally produces the beautiful lotus. So when you look at a Buddha and it's sitting on a lotus, you should be able to have some of that reflection. You know, again, I guess I'm a guy, and guys like cars. So for example, I mean, I could look at a standard issue car and I said, okay, it's not got much. But then I look at what is it? Let's say a Mercedes-Benz E300. It's got massages built into the seat. You know, you get into the seat and you start driving, you hit a button and then there's down your spine. Okay, so when you look at an E300 Mercedes-Benz and you whoa, that car is nice. You know, it's got that, it's got cruise control, it's got all these other bells and whistles. You know, I mean, I wouldn't know what they all are anyway because I don't own one, but I have a friend who owns one, and he turned on the massage. But okay, so like that, when you look at a lotus, you should really flesh it out with lots of like, you know, it's got cruise control, it's got massaging seats, it's got heated seats, it's got air conditioning, you know, like that you do. And I'm sure some of you have some of those things, or maybe it's a kitchen appliance that you can say, whoa, this kitchen appliance is the best, you know, because it does all of these wonderful things or whatever. So like that, when you look at a lotus, you should have lots of feeling and such, because that's going to become your Tantra. Because Tantra is symbolically personified our graduated path to enlightenment. So this is the lotus. Okay, but I think for me, the lotus is by far the richest part of the visualization because of everything I just talked about. It's so full and it's got so many good things in it. Okay. Anyway, then on top of that, generally, you know, you have either a sun and a moon, or you have just the moon. We'll do the sun and the moon because it's easier, because it's the sun represents wisdom and the moon represents compassion. Okay, and again, this is, I mean, sure you've all read these before or studied these before, but you know, I mean, if you go into the sunlight, it burns you, but if you go into the moonlight, it's cool and humid on your skin. So the sun, sort of might say, reveals things and its brilliance and as such. That's wisdom and such. And the moon represents the compassion, the soft feeling on your skin, which is what compassion is. It touches you softly. So you could say the sun reveals and the moon is soft and compassionate. So that's one thing. But the other side also is that the moon can represent both wisdom and compassion, in the sense that the moon itself has no light on itself. It needs to be interdependent. And so interdependence is the key understanding in wisdom. You know, as Nagarjuna said, if you understand interdependence, you understand the void. Or it says the understanding of interdependence is the king or the queen of all wisdoms, because it understands the void. So looking at the moon, it doesn't have any of its own light, but it has light because of reflection, because of interdependence. That's the nature of reality. And then it's soft. The light on your skin is soft because that is compassion. It is not hard. Okay, so that's where the moon can both embody wisdom and compassion, or the sun can embody the wisdom, which is clarifying, and then the moon involves a sort of softer touch. Okay, anyway, so that's what all Buddhists sit on. Okay, so they sit on their spiritual determination, not renunciation. Okay, remember, renunciation is looking back. Spiritual determination is looking forward. Okay, so they rely on their spiritual determination and then on their wisdom and compassion. Okay, it depends whether it's a sun, moon, or just the moon cushion. Okay, now, one thing, okay, let me see. So we've got this to the seat of any tantric Buddha. is on a lotus sun moon or lotus moon. Okay. I can talk a lot, but I don't. I want to open it to questions. Okay, because we got the chat and we can do it really easily. So if there's any questions on anything that we just did, okay.
Please raise your hand. Yeah, that's all, everyone. Christine also had a question about the dictionary of the Jesuits.
The dictionary? Oh, it's just called Chandra Das's dictionary, but there's about 3 or 4 of them out now. There's much more modern versions. The Chandra Das dictionary, I mean, it's really thick and big. You can buy it in India for, you know, a couple hundred pesos or rupees or something. Chandra Das did a very good job, but a lot of the words were coming from some Jesuits that went to Tibet quite a few years earlier, and then started to, you know, do the, itemize the words. And so they had Christian perspective. So they made, you know, Nejung as renunciation, which applies a little bit. I mean, the word does work sometimes, but you really need to think about it saying, I have spiritual determination. I'm going somewhere. It's not like I'm looking back to what I've given up. It's a difference. Okay, Ariella?
Good evening, Jampa. Thank you very much for your teachings. In regards to what you said, do you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes.
In regards to what you said about our anger, to work with our anger, can you be a little bit more specific how to work with our anger, especially when we're angry and our mind tells us you're right to be angry because this guy is an a-hole, or your child did something that shouldn't have done and they know that they shouldn't have done it, when you're right to be angry. Thank you.
Okay, the first thing I was talking about perspective. So we're talking about the perspective on anger. Let's differentiate it as later when you look back to your anger, you have a perspective on it. Oh, this is the manure that's going to turn into my potential of becoming more enlightened. So that's the first thing, is we're talking of a perspective about anger, that it does have, well, if you don't like anger, you see it and you have aversion. And if you see somebody else's anger, you have aversion. So that means is that you're not, and then you can say the things at a distance saying anger won't solve your problems, but you're really not sort of thing. Whereas if you can go into the pain of your anger and say, whoa, geez, I really would love to beat the hell out of that person, or I would have really told them exactly how bad they were. And you go, whoa, that's a really intensive feeling. Okay, well, that's not really going to be very skillful. So first thing is just perspective, that I want to bring my anger into enlightenment. Okay, that's one thing. Now, second thing, anger. In the moment, one Sakyapa Geshe I translated for years, he said, the first moment of anger, don't worry about it because you have no control. It's the second or third moment that you try to do something about it. Okay, so this gives you a sort of a perspective that when you first get angry, you say, okay, it's like it comes up so fast, like an intensity and whatever. Okay, don't worry about that moment. But then the next moment, that's when all of your graduated path teachings. So you take Shanti Deva, everything he ever said in there is just perfect. I mean, you can stop yourself by just saying, ooh, I'm going to destroy all my karma, which is, not the most skillful way, but at least it stops you. Or then you could say, gee, this is, all of the standard ones is, this is the most skillful way to solve the problem. It'll make me have indigestion. If I stay angry, people will start to avoid me and I'll have no friends. All of disadvantages. So when you start to be more familiar with the graduated path presentations about anger doesn't help, that can slow you down a lot. Okay, then the question would be skillful means. So there's actually a quite good commentary by one fellow, I can't remember, I can't quote the author, but he talked about how anger is actually quite good if you work with it correctly. But what the word is really is skillful means. So when you have this intensity, to then turn around and say, what's the skillful means to deal with this? How can I solve this problem? Okay, so the question would be is to take the intensity and say, okay, I mean, like, perfect example, child. Okay, I mean, if you raise children, I raised 2 stepchildren. After I finished, I was a monk for 14 years, and then I was married for 18 years. I got divorced then, but I raised 2 stepkids, so I know all about the anger when your kids don't do well, and especially when one of them is really obnoxious. So I mean, I have perfect empathy. Absolutely, I can touch those emotions even right now. But the point is that then to say, well, nowadays we all know you don't say to the child, "You're a bad child," because that just identifies them with being that they're bad. No, you can say what you did is not good, or what you did was hurtful or painful. So you differentiate the child from the action. And then that's called skillful parenting. So the same thing with everything. It's like, okay, I'm really angry right now. What's going to be the better technique? That's one thing. A friend of mine from Toronto, he used to be very close with Lama Yeshe. He always used the thing of like, I said, what would Lama Yeshe do? That was a little mantra he had that would just make him think about other options. So my bottom line is that you need to first have a perspective to say, anger is not useful, but I'm going to try to bring it into enlightenment. Because if I can bring my angry feelings into enlightenment, I will have massive amounts of patience with another person who's angry, understanding them because I know what it took to go through my anger. That's the path of a bodhisattva. I mean, that really is. Okay, so that's first perspective. Second one, then just the techniques of dealing with anger, that it's not beneficial and all the other ones. So that when it happens, yeah, the first moment you got it. But the second moment you can say, okay, and you just where you hold your breath or you inhale, exhale, or Titnahan, take 3 breaths, all of these wonderful things that are available for us nowadays, because we have the lottery ticket of a precious human rebirth, we start to look for other options. And maybe we're not so skillful, but that's the point of being a bodhisattva, that we do become skillful. And maybe at the end of our life, we really are more skillful. At the beginning of our life, maybe we weren't. So that's the evolution of a bodhisattva. Okay. Okay, now there was somebody else had their hand up and I don't see, oh, there, Anna.
Hi, Jumper. Thank you for
Hi.
today's teachings. Hi. I'm just wondering, I don't know whether you've covered it. I do apologize if you have. What are the particular differences between the 4 tantras?
Okay, is that
Please.
it?
Thank you.
Well,
Just that.
okay, a simple version. Okay, the first 2 tantras, Kriya and Karya, Kriya Tantra, Karya Tantra, are generally speaking the deities in front of you, and you venerate the deity, or you admire the deity, or you're inspired by the deity and such. Okay, so that's the technique that you would rely on. And there is some visualizations, but it's not until you get to the yoga or anuttara yoga that you can actually identify with being a deity. Okay, so you need to be able to, let's say, well, you have to have your 5 aggregates transformed in an anuttara yoga initiation, and then you've been introduced to your Buddha nature or your Dharmakaya, etc., and then you can manifest as a deity. But in the lower tantras, no, you basically take it as inspiration and such, and things. And there's very, very good techniques about it. There's what's called dwelling in sound, in the lower tantras, dwelling in sound, or dwelling in flame or light. You do that in your heart chakra with the mantra and such, and that's for where you could maybe have a more refined level of consciousness. Again, the deities, each one has its sort of flavor. Tara is enlightened activity. Avalokiteshvara is compassion. Manjushri is wisdom. Vajrayana is ability. So those are the standard Buddhas. I mean, then there's lots of other, minor deities. I mean, Prajnaparamita and all sorts of stuff. But, generally they personify a particular quality that helps you maybe identify it within yourself, inspire you and move you forward. Okay. And then some of them, like, for example, white Tara would be for long life and things. There's all sorts of various practices. When you move to the Anuttara yoga, or the yoga and Anuttara yoga, then it's much more identification with the deity. And we'll talk about that in future classes because there's a lot of material in that. But it would be different. So instead of, I always like, so I'm looking at my altar and I'm inspired. When you take a tantric initiation, you turn around and you're facing the same direction as the altar, or you're facing, like the altar is facing out, you're facing out because you've identified with the deity. And maybe you're not as skillful as that Buddha, but you're emulating that Buddha. So it'd be Avalok, or like Yamataka or Heruka or Vajrayana or something like that. So you shift your position a little bit with the identification, okay? Then there's also, there is something about bliss. Treacher Rinpoche explained it this way, and it's appreciating bliss with the nature of reality. So when you have a blissful feeling, for example, I mean, this Lama Yeshe is perfect, chocolate cake, okay? So you eat some chocolate cake, the mundane mind says, I want more. The mind of a practitioner is, whoa, that was blissful. Everything is interdependent. Nothing is self-existent. And that's what makes then the pleasure of the chocolate cake go in the direction of wisdom. Okay, so that the blissfulness that you feel, you turn that with an appreciation of interdependence. If it's a relative perspective on reality, or open like the space of the sky, if it's an ultimate perspective on reality. But in this case, the relative one would be more, the relative perspective would be a bit more useful. I'm in a universal ocean of interdependence, and bliss is continually reminding me of that. So with that understanding, looking at something beautiful gives you bliss. That's the first. Holding hands with that gives you a certain level of bliss. Caressing each other gives you a much higher level of bliss. And finally, sexual union is like the supreme bliss for us as human beings. So each one of those is related with, I am completely interdependent, empty of it, or I am interdependent, not self-existent in any one of those four levels. So obviously, if you're talking about caressing or sexual intercourse, that you need to be pretty clear about that I'm not independently self-existent, because the mind goes towards desire really easily. Okay, but anyway, so there's a simplistic rendition of the four levels of Tantra, okay? Then I'm sorry, Nadina.
Hello, thank you, Jampa. I think my question is the same as one of the questions in the chat box. It regarding with taking Tantra initiations. I'm speaking in particular about lower Tantra initiations. I think if I'm alive, I will have an opportunity to take one in April. Is it necessary to have to take a bodhisattva vows in advance? So did we understand correctly? Should it be vows or yeah, because I will explain. I attended the ceremony like 2 years ago with a motivation to take just an aspiring bodhicitta, because I wasn't ready there yet to take the engaging one. But now I feel like completely confident, and I wish to take the entire set of bodhisattva vows, but there is not opportunity to take it, to make it with teacher. But I also read in His Holiness book that it is possible to do it yourself. So will you recommend it, or is it a necessary prerequisite in order to take lower Tantra permission? Thank you.
Okay. Sort of, it's a shame, because you could have done bodhisattva vows 2 times in the last 2 days with the Dalai Lama. You didn't have to take the big initiation, because it goes through steps. And so one of the steps is taking bodhisattva vows. Then you would have stopped the video and said, okay, I just got bodhisattva vows from the Dalai Lama live. Woo! Okay, so keep your eyes on that anytime an Anuttara or any high Tantra initiation is given, you can attend just up to the bodhisattva vow and then quit. And you renew your bodhisattva vows, or you take them for the first time. That's just something to know, because taking them from His Holiness would be so precious. Even, for example, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he's giving some teaching sometimes, high Tantra. Well, again, just attend for receiving those vows. That's just one comment that you might want to be more conscious of, because Bodhisattva vows are really the essence of our whole Tantra practice. I mean, that's what it's all about. Next, okay. It's okay. It is, Bodhisattva vows have lots of little precepts, okay? But I like to always put it in the context of, and again, every teacher will have their own opinion about this, so please appreciate that. But it's like learning how to drive a car. You have the basic idea of how to drive the car, and maybe you take a few lessons, and so you know how to not hit the curb and not to kill anybody or something like that, you know. And then as time passes, you get more proficient, and you know how to stop, you know, when to stop at a stoplight, who gets to go first and not. I mean, all the little details. So the same thing with taking Bodhisattva vows is, don't, you know, stress yourself that, have I got all the vows under my belt? Do I understand them all? You know, have the idea that, okay, I am taking the vow, I'm sincere, and as I gain proficiency, I will be better and better at maintaining them. Okay, most of the Bodhisattva vows are pretty straightforward. Most of us would have them without any problem, because a lot of them are like, I mean, don't burn down a village, or, you know, don't ransack a temple, you know, things like that. And so the thing is it's not like it's not like you could say, a lot of them do not apply. But then there's the ones like, you know, always be sincere in your answers to sentient beings, you know, never abandon bodhicitta, that you try to be helpful, you know, and things like that. Those are ones which are maybe more pertinent to us as lay people. So so first off, in regards to taking the vows, I'm just suggesting that do it like you learned how to drive a car. You didn't know all the rules of the book, but you did sort of have the general idea. And I'll give you the best example myself. When I took my ordination as a monk, it was August of 1971 with Geshe Rapton and 5 monks. And Lama Yeshe was the translator. I had no idea what I'd done. I had no idea what the precepts were. I mean, I guess I knew there were 36, but the main thing I knew was that I had to be virtuous and I couldn't have a girlfriend. You know, pretty straightforward. That's it. You know, I mean, and I was a good monk. I didn't have any knowledge of my precepts until at least 2 years later, when there was enough translators around to translate things and to explain what the rules of a novice monk and nun were. Okay, so I share that in the sense that sincerity is very powerful, and so just having the idea I'm working for the benefit of sentient beings is more than sufficient in taking your bodhisattva vows. Okay, but of course studying and things, and then that. Okay, so first thing, you can take bodhisattva vows online, yes, okay, because it's your sincerity. It's not about anything else. You know, any precepts you take, whether it's you take refuge, any of the 5 lay precepts, or then bodhisattva vows or tantric vows, you're only being witnessed. That someone is witnessing you and they heard you say it. Now, obviously online, maybe they can't hear you, but if you got somebody else in the room, they heard you say it. So therefore, that would be then what qualifies as taking a precept, that you are being witnessed for what you believe in and what you are saying. Okay, so that's sort of the more important thing about it. So so we have, take it online, and if you do big initiations, just drop out at the time of the bodhisattva, after the bodhisattva vows. Secondly, when you take it, it's like learning how to drive. Don't think you need to have all the rules down pat. You're going to learn how to do them. Third thing is that when you take them, it's all about sincerity, and then you're being witnessed to that's the type of person you are. Okay, so I think that sort of is what's more important. Now, your question was, you can, as you said, you can take bodhisattva vows on your own. Now, if you could be witnessed by somebody, that would be nice. That would be things. So generally, in all initiations, you will be given bodhisattva vows before you get the initiation or the permission. So you don't need to worry that you will get them prior to entering into a deity practice. Okay, so that's sort of the final comment, that you will have stated I am a bodhisattva. I wish to work for the benefit of sentient beings. Please, I would like to have a better connection with Tara. And with both Avalokitesh, Tara, Manjushri, or Vajrapani, any of those deities, in the first two levels of Tantra, you are getting an introduction to them. It's like, it's like you may have heard my name, Jampa, but now you've actually got to meet me. That's what it's like in an initiation, that you actually get to shake the hand of Tara, it's via the vehicle of a guru who has good commitment, done the proper requisites, and then can give you that blessing. So it's that, or Lama Yeshe said, it's like you get the private cell phone number for Tara. And that's really what it is. I mean, we sit there and go, Tara, so that's a cell phone number. And then one day she might answer and freak you out. But, the thing is that's the thing is that you could look for people like maybe Lama Zopa is doing some sort of thing online or something, and then you take bodhisattva vows. Okay, or the Dalai Lama sometimes does it, whether it's generation or engaging bodhicitta. But you will get it before you get initiation. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm talking a long time, but anyway, good stuff.
Thank you, Jampa. It's actually really wonderful and interesting. A further question about that. Isn't there some sort of quality to take the vows in front of a physical Lama rather than doing it online? Or is it just the intention no matter what?
I would say it's mostly intention. Because, for example, you can take refuge by just standing outside and yelling into space. I take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, and that's recognized as taking refuge. I mean, that's in the refuge commentaries. It says that can be the case. So it is mostly that. But the thing is to be witnessed by others. Now, for example, you, Lars, could give refuge to somebody. Now, maybe with an FPMT, you need to be permission, but the thing is, irrespective of that, okay, you could give refuge to somebody because you have it. And so therefore, you could give it to somebody because you have it. And what you'd be doing is you would be witnessing. So it's called the preceptor. You are the preceptor. But all you're really doing is you are the representative of the Buddha, and you are witnessing what that person has to say. So therefore, within that understanding, then same thing applies to bodhisattva vows. It is something that tantric vows, no, you can take initiations online. They say as long as it's live, it would apply. So the Dalai Lama says that, so I won't contradict him. Okay, all right.
There's a question in the chat from Monica. Do you wish to say it yourself, Monica? Oh.
Okay, in the chat, I only see, can you take bodhisattvas online? That's the last chat I have.
Yeah.
From Monica.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, I replied to it. So
yeah. Then Cyril asked, spiritual determination is symbolized by the blossoming of the lotus or the roots of the lotus, question mark.
All of it. Okay, a lotus blossoming up if it doesn't have the roots and the stem, it won't do it. So no, it's the whole package. And that's what's really important. It's like I say, it's like when you look at a very expensive car, it has massaging seats and heated seats and air conditioning and this and that. Same thing applies when you look at the lotus. It has its roots in the quagmire. And with that, then the stem can grow strong. And then with that, then finally the lotus can blossom above the quagmire, above the water in all its beauty. Any one of those parts is missing, it won't happen. That's spiritual determination.
Right. And then a question is, did I understand you to say that one should be a bodhisattva in order to practice Tantra?
No, actually, there's lots of Tantra practices out there which are not Buddhist. So you could practice, Kundalini, or you call it Tumo, with no bodhisattva vow. But if you are, let's just say, if you're in the Buddhist vehicle, the only reason you practice Tantra is because it ripens you faster. And so therefore, as a Buddhist, you want to, you have your bodhisattva commitment, or you are a bodhisattva, and then you practice Tantra to have quicker experiences or quicker realizations. So for Buddhism, you have to be a bodhisattva to practice Tantra, but you can practice Tantra outside of Buddhism. But then you're just going to be, be egocentrically powerful. So again, come back to the thing we started with, the whole talk, which deities personify the graduated path. If you don't have the graduated path, the deity doesn't have any substance, again, within Buddhist context. So if you're a Buddhist, you would have some appreciation of the context of the deity, which would be the graduated path. I mean, whether it's, Tara represents the 3 jewels with the way their mudra is on her left hand. I mean, I am the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Okay, I will help you in whatever way I can to help you become enlightened. I have all of the jewels where represent the 6 perfections. And then I'm seated on a lotus, which is my spiritual determination, and on a moon cushion, which is my wisdom and compassion. It's all just talking to you about your Buddhist path. But the thing is, there's an example for this, that what is Tantra? Okay, your graduated path is like you decorate a Christmas tree. Okay, you put the bonicles and everything, and you make the Christmas tree really beautiful. Tantra is you plug it in. So what is Tantra? Tantra is power, basically. It is, it's powerful states of consciousness. So if you did practice Tantra, you could become, you could have quite a bit of conscious power, because that's what you're cultivating in the completion stage levels of practice. But that's where it's really important that you decorate the Christmas tree well, because if you don't decorate it well and you plug it in, then there's nothing beautiful. So becoming a bodhisattva, becoming a Buddha, it's something beautiful. So again, Kundalini practices or Tummo or all those other things, or let's say even lucid dreaming, which is a rather basic thing that you can have in the completion stage practice. The instructions on that, all that just gives you power. I mean, so if you become lucid in your dreams, you can make love to anybody you want to. Rather mundane, but the things you could do it, because you're lucid in your dreams. You could invoke some fancy person like maybe Richard Gere, or maybe, I don't know, Sophia Loren or something, and you have sex with them because it's your lucid dream, but what's the benefit? Just increasing your desire. So in lucid dreaming, you practice how to be a bodhisattva. So that's the Buddhist view on lucid dreaming. If you get some, you start to get some abilities with your Tummo or your Kundalini practice, if it's Hinduism or whatever, it's to make you a better bodhisattva. It's not for anything else. Okay. Anyway, so we'll talk about this as we get further into the class. Okay. But yeah, bodhicitta is the life of our practice as in the Mahayana. And so, not that there's a measurement on that like I'm a good bodhisattva, I'm not. It's just I have the intention, I'm trying to engage, I do the best I can. That's all that's required. I mean, it's not like there's any measurement. Somebody come along with a measuring stick and say, "Oh, you're a 3-inch bodhisattva and you're a 10-centimeter bodhisattva." No, it's sincerity and doing the best you can. Okay, we're at 1:08. Or at least that's my time, because it's 8:08 for you guys. Okay. I'm sorry, Andrea.
I'm sorry, just now in the meantime, I also have a question that I found one online, how to say, on a YouTube, an initiation from His Holiness, but it was not, how do you say, it was not real time,
Not live.
Not live, exactly. And because when the intention is there, is it still okay then theoretically, or?
Well, personally, for me, yes.
Okay.
I love watching His Holiness, even if it's something from 5 years ago, because he's very precious. But I like, let's say, having the intention to becoming, okay, you have the intention or you're engaged. Okay, that's sort of the definition of bodhicitta. So you can have the intention and you can be engaged having nobody know about it. Who's to say you're not a bodhisattva because you didn't take it in front of somebody? Nobody could say that. You know, I mean, I can think of some Christians that are incredible bodhisattvas, you know, unbelievable bodhisattvas, because it's about having a good heart and being a benefit to sentient beings. Okay, so let's just say I am wishing to be of help to sentient beings. I am acting on trying to help sentient beings. Okay, that's bodhicitta. Now, if you could take it from somebody who has those vows, that would be the best. But all you're doing is they're witnessing you.
No, I was sorry. I was talking about tantric initiation. Now. I'm sorry. Oh, I changed because I also find some lower tantric initiation.
I don't, you know, I would say that no.
Okay.
That you want it live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could attend it to increase your feelings and such. Mm-hmm. You know, that would be, I think, very valid. I mean, I do that. I watch previous things of the Dalai Lama because he says something really interesting and I get a better understanding. But if you really want, like, I would say you do not have the initiation unless you've had it live, whether live online or live with a person.
Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you.
But if live online, nobody sees you though. I mean, you said you had to have somebody in the house because like you
or maybe your pussycat or dog sees you.
or maybe the Buddhas are around you and
or
see
maybe insect sees you.
Well,
so
okay.
there are
there
many
we
things
go.
in you know.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, actually, it's a good question. I would say that, you know, you see yourself. So the thing is, you know, you said it.
Yeah.
But on the other side, yeah, I mean, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, I mean, when you take initiations or when you take precepts, you should visualize the space is full of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they are witnessing you. So that would be applicable. Granted, I mean, you know, I'll give you the example that I like is you're dating somebody or that person's dating you, but they never say anything about they like you. The relationship so. But then they one day say, oh, I like you. Oh, suddenly a little bit more serious. Yeah. Oh, they like me. Okay. You know, and then down the road they say, well, I like to be, you know, in English we say go steady, we're in a committed boyfriend-girlfriend relationship or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever thing. Okay. They said it. Oh, now it's more serious. Then the big one, of course, is that you have a wedding ceremony. And what's that? Well, in Buddhism, there is no God sanctifies your wedding. Absolutely nothing like that. In fact, when you have a wedding in Buddhism, you don't even have monks and nuns there. You know, they can be there prior to the actual ritual and they pray for your long life and your success and maybe that you're not too deluded. Okay, but then they leave. And so what is a wedding ceremony in Buddhism? It's that all the community witnesses that John is with Joyce, or, you know, Juan is with Alfreda or something like that. You know, in Buddhism, it is that you are witness that you are making commitment to somebody. Okay, so anyway, just in regards to you know, to commitments and things, if it is heard by another, it's definitely more serious. So but that doesn't mean that you don't love somebody or something like that. Oh, okay. Well, there's an example by Adriana that Garchen Rinpoche says you can take it from his recordings. Yeah, there's going to be lots of opinions. You know, I just think that actually taking it from somebody live is a little bit more powerful. I've attended lots of initiations that are previous ones, and they've inspired me. So yeah, so okay. Again, there's lots of opinions. I just think okay, we've still got to go on Tantra. Real Tantra is like having a psychologist, that you have a practice that you were instructed in, whether it was online or whether it was over the telephone or whatever. But the point is that you have that. And then as your experiences happen, you have someone that you can talk to. So I really think that real Tantra is like having a psychologist that you go and see once a month, once every couple of months or whatever it is. It's like that type of relationship. Now, for example, let's take Lama Zopa. He gives public teachings and he gives initiations. Okay, it would be hard to be able to have access to Lama Zopa now because he's so popular. If it was 30, 40 years ago, you could have done it. but nowadays, no. But then you have other teachers that could be beneficial or help you with your practice. So whether it's the big psychologist or a sub-psychologist, but the bottom line is Tantra is something that is sort of a personal, with personal guidance in becoming enlightened, okay? Okay, anyway, so we're down to 1:15. Okay, I want to review what we've covered. So again, we're doing sort of introduction to Tantra, okay? And so first off, there's 4 levels of Tantra. The 2 lower ones, you have the deity in front of you generally, and the 2 higher ones you can identify with the deity. The tantric deities personify the graduated path to enlightenment. The better you understand your graduated path to enlightenment, the better that deity will have flavor for you. It's like having a plate of food that just basically has no flavor, is with no understanding. As soon as you start adding, chilies and salts and peppers and whatever else, suddenly that meal becomes full. Same thing with Tantra. The better you've understood the graduated path as culminating realizations to some extent, then the deity becomes very, very meaningful for you. Like, for example, we talked about the lotus. It needs its nourishment, then the stem is strong, and then the flower is beautiful and stable above the quagmire. So all those 3 things need to be there. That's spiritual determination. Okay, so then the deity is a personification of the graduate path to enlightenment. Okay, and we talked about the foundation of a deity, the lotus, and then the sun and moon, or just the moon, which is then our spiritual determination, our wisdom, and our compassion. Okay, that's the foundation. We're going to move into deities a little later, but we did touch on them briefly. I mean, for example, Tara is like, I am a fully enlightened lady. I am the Buddha Dharma Sangha. You can rely on me completely. That's what she represents. And then all of her jewelry represents the 6 perfections and lots of other details. Okay, so that's the foundation for any Buddha. And then we talked a little bit from questions. We talked about bodhicitta and such. And so really, you can be an incredibly good bodhisattva, great. And if you wish to practice Tantra, then you become a tantric bodhisattva. So bodhicitta is important in both of those categories, okay? And then we did talk a teeny bit about the empathy, which I think for me makes it so much more meaningful about how can a Buddha spontaneously understand my consciousness? Because when the Buddha's very sensitive consciousness touches all the nuances of my mind with all of its idiosyncrasies, that they fully understand that and empathize and then have compassion spontaneously, because they've been there, they've done it, they know what it's all about. Okay, so it's sort of a quick review of what we covered for today. Okay, Lars, you have any concluding statements?
Well, I have to say I'm in awe about how you just shifted to a different topic and then just went along and presented such a fantastic teaching for us and summing it all up and responding to questions. Thank you, really. I'm really full of awe and looking forward to next Thursday. So concluding, this was wonderful teachings. Absolutely. Do you wish to go to the dedications now, or do we have a few more minutes to go?
Well, if you want to make it officially an hour and a half, sure.
No, no, not necessarily. Then next Thursday will be the follow-up on Tantra, and then in April will be one session about Mahamudra. But maybe, who knows, we can add more. People are writing in the chat wonderful teachings, and I concur. Yes.
Okay, so just a quick question then. So this is March the 9th.
Yeah.
Then how many more sessions in Tantra? Just 1 or 2 or how many?
Yeah, just 1 for now. But if you wish to come back, I would happily accept you. We just need to find a good date for it. So because we have the Robina on the 4th Thursday of this month. So
okay, so 1 more class in Tantra next Thursday. Yes.
Yes, and then in April I think it was April 9. It will be about Mahamudra. I need to look it up. I forgot. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, then. Okay, I understand. I'm sorry because I was confused. I thought I was supposed to do one. Anyway, so don't worry. Everything's good.
Good. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Excellent. I could share the dedications, and do you wish to read along in English?
See. I mean, obviously the Tibetan is much nicer than the English, so Sala do parsho Changchu sem cha rimboche mage panange gurching gewa namba me ba yi konde kondu pelwarsho. May the precious view of emptiness, that which has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has not arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Okay. Long life for Sonis. In the land encircled by the snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Vajrayana doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, you disciples, please live long.
And again, thank you so much. It was absolutely fantastic. Nice to have a clear answer to all of those many questions, which I also have had also in the wake of His Holiness's teachings in the past few days. So thank you very much. We're looking so much forward to next Thursday. Thank you everybody for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so very much.
Thank you, Lars.
Hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Lars.
Bye everyone.